At the FIBA World Cup, Team USA is now in a very strong position to advance to the quarterfinals, but they faced a tough test on Friday morning, getting past Montenegro 85-73. So let's recap that game and look at what is next for the United States. We're going to do that with a contributor to the Action Network and NewYorkPost.com. That is Bryan Fonseca. You see the shirt he's rocking there. Very happy, proud Puerto Rican. His team, Puerto Rico, just got an upset win over the Dominican Republic. So, Bryan, I got to ask you this. How you feeling, man?
Feeling amazing, Dex.
Of
I
course
only
you
wish
are.
that I wish that I bet Puerto Rico on the money line because I had us to cover at plus 9.5. But now what I need for the purposes of what I've been saying leading up to the tournament, now I need Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic to win on Sunday to advance so that I could be right about DR going to the quarterfinals and so that I could pump my chest about my island.
Yeah, well, yes, you'd love that. You'd love to be right all. You need that, especially after you predicted France to win the whole thing, and they did not.
Yeah.
We got to remind the people of that. But
that's right.
We're going to talk about Team USA. Montenegro, in the game they played this morning, they led it to half. This was a close game with about 3 minutes to play. How did Team USA pull this one out, Bryan?
I thought the test was going to come against Lithuania on Sunday, and the test came sooner because Kendrick Perry and Nikola Vucevic have been a dynamic duo for Montenegro. And the way USA pulled this out is they just decided to lock in. I did not like when I watched back the game. Didn't like how their offense looked. Brandon Ingram struggled again. A lot of guys struggled from the field. Anthony Edwards was one of the few guys that did not. And he was able to sort of carry the team late in the game. And that's really how they won. But Team USA, I mean, this is what you kind of want at this time of the tournament. Because what you don't want is for them to just breeze through and get to the quarterfinals, not having been tested. That being said, being tested against Montenegro as opposed to who I thought was going to be the bigger test in Lithuania and still might be on Sunday, that's a little bit worrisome, I would say, to some degree. But I do think that it's fine because they won the game. But a little bit of an unexpected test there from Montenegro today.
Yeah, a bit of an unexpected test for the Americans. And I wonder how much of it has to do with what we're going to talk about next, because we've spoke about the lack of size for the U.S. Did the play of Montenegro's bigs, did that expose the Americans' weakness here?
Nikola Vucevic had 16 rebounds. And Jonas Valanciunas is capable of getting more. And they also have a second 7-footer, Donatas Matahunas, who plays a lot on that team in Lithuania. So this is something the Team USA is going to have to be cognizant of going forward. And we knew this when they constructed the roster because Jaren Jackson Jr. is a very skilled big. But he's not always a big. He's not somebody who rebounds great for his position. And even in this FIBA competition where you can get away with playing Jaren Jackson Jr. at center against Jordan, against a Greece team without Giannis Antetokounmpo, can you do that against Lithuania, Montenegro, when you start seeing some of these better European nations, and potentially later on in the tournament, if you see a Spain, if you see an Australia, if they're able to survive, if you see Canada, which is the one that we have circled, if Canada can make it that far and if the USA can make it that far. And potentially France before France ended up getting knocked out, so the USA doesn't have to worry about that. But the size is a bit of a concern because Jaren Jackson Jr., he can get in foul trouble against some of these bigs who are skilled. It's not just the size, it's also the skill level that Nikola Vucevic, Jonas Valanciunas, and some of these other guys have that can give USA some problems on the interior. And if you're going to beat a more athletic and a more talented Team USA team, you can do that with skilled bigs and just roughing them up on the inside and really just playing a bruiser style of basketball that some of these other teams are capable of.
Yeah, we'll see how that lack of size is going to play out against Lithuania. That's going to be very interesting. We'll get to that in a second. I want to talk about Anthony Edwards. Scored all 17 of his points in the second half. You talked before the tournament and said that he's the best player on this squad. Has he shown that to you thus far?
He's clearly the alpha. If you look at this team and when they have to create offense, Anthony Edwards is the guy. He just is. And going on down the stretch, they clearly needed it because they were losing at halftime, as you said, Dex. And then Anthony Edwards gets his points in the second half, and he's able to create. You have a lot of guys on this team who you can sort of give the ball and let them get theirs, but in a tight fourth quarter game situation, he's somebody who you want the ball in his hands because he's the best one at doing that right now. And it's a great test for him because as it relates to his NBA career, this is something that he's going to be doing a lot more, being in these situations. And in order to do it at the World Cup, you know, you got to have that experience. Well, he hasn't really had a ton of that experience yet on the Minnesota team because they haven't played a ton of meaningful games. But this is all going to help in one way or the other. And I think for Team USA, yeah, you need to see Ant sort of bring you across the finish line at the end. If he's unable to, somebody else has to step up, and they're capable of doing that. I think there's going to be a game where Jalen Brunson could do that, for example, right? But ultimately, with Anthony Edwards, it's good to see him maturing in this way. You just better be careful about, whether or not it goes left in another game situation. But I think Team USA is obviously good enough to win this tournament, and they continue to show that. But it also needs to be said that the gap has closed, and you're not going to be able to just talent your way through this. So Anthony Edwards, is somebody who can create that late game offense, and I think do so effectively enough for them to win. But they have to be careful about putting themselves in those situations to begin with.
Yeah, have to be careful with that. And the Ant-Man has been strong for Team USA thus far in the FIBA World Cup. So next up for the Americans, it's a matchup with Lithuania. What does Team USA need to do better in that matchup to advance to the quarters?
It's the same thing I've been saying all along with this Team USA team: get off to a better start. They have not gotten off to good starts at all. For the most part, it took them 2.5 quarters to pull away from a New Zealand team, as I noted, Dex, that was missing a lot of their key guys on their roster, who didn't even make it to the roster for the FIBA World Cup that they somewhat expected to have. And then, a Greece team, they were able to pull away from a little bit earlier, but I don't think this Greece team is very good, and Lithuania is beating them right now as we speak. And with Lithuania, I think Team USA, you just have to get off to a better start. Don't continue to put yourselves in these situations where you can just flip the switch late in the game, because one of these games you might not be able to, as I was sort of alluding to earlier. Like, one of these games, you're going to need to flip on that third quarter switch where you're all of a sudden going to make it a 10-point lead in your favor after it was sort of up and down before that, after a 14-point run. But then you're not going to be able to do that because another team is actually going to be better than what you saw previously, is going to be able to bring it defensively and things of that nature. So Team USA has to get off to better starts so that they're not putting themselves in those positions where they have to sort of have these second half surges in order to stay alive in this tournament.
All right, we'll see what they can do on Sunday against Lithuania. Bryan has been giving us great coverage of the FIBA World Cup, and we'll talk to Bryan again on Sunday. He's a contributor for the Action Network and NewYorkPost.com. Bryan, thanks for the insight as always. Enjoy the rest of your day and celebrating Puerto Rico's big win over the Dominican Republic. I know you're going to enjoy that.
Thank you for having me.